Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks with ADSR, and in this video you are checking out a massive tip and trick tutorial. So in this video I got a lot of questions a while ago when I did a Serum tutorial discussing how you can change the rate of an LFO. And Serum's cool because it gives you just the option to macro or modulate through the rate and it's tempo synced. Well, Massive doesn't give you that option, unfortunately. So we're going to be looking at a patch that's already kind of made. I don't want to spend a bunch of time making a patch in this video. I wanted to focus on how you can set up some macros and some modulation so you can actually really easily change the LFO rate. Now, I like to do this with two filters. You could do this with one filter, but the reason I like to do it with two filters is it gives me more control over the sound in that I can set up a filter envelope, and I can use a filter envelope on both sounds, for instance. So with this specific sound here, we could, let's change the filter envelope to envelope 3 on both these. So now we have a filter envelope independent from the fourth envelope, which is tied to the amp mod of Massive. So right now it's just going to be a big supersaw sound. Okay, so by doing this, I want to be able to have both the, I want to be able to do three things. I want to be able to change the LFO rate, and then I want to be able to take off the LFO if I want, because that's really cool because you can modulate through and do some cool things. Now, this is obviously geared towards like a future bass type feeling. This will also be really helpful for dubstep. Now, this is also really cool for more subtle ambient sounds like pads and anything that you kind of create like a subtle movement to. You can change from like a half note timing to maybe like a quarter note or even slower, give you a ratio of like 1/1, 1/2. So there's a lot that you can do with this, but in this video we're going to change from a quarter note ratio to an eighth note ratio on a sinusoidal LFO. So this sound going to run through a little bit of it. It's 3 oscillators. It's just a big supersaw sound. I have the voicing set to 7. I have a little bit of detune. I have it set to stereo widen the pan position of the voices, a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, not a whole lot going on with the sound. Now, what we're going to do here is we're gonna look at this filter setup. So I have each of the oscillators they're being sent to both filter 1 and filter 2, and I have the filter slider set from serial to parallel. Now, the mix 1, mix 2, I'm going to leave up all the way at the top because I'm going to use a macro that's going to turn on and off an LFO to control that. So it's going to switch from filter 1 to filter 2. Now, filter 1 and filter 2 are basically just mirror images of each other in this instance. We have a DAF filter in filter 1, a DAF filter in filter 2, and we have the same setup. We have macro 3 being our sidechain input keyed into our third envelope. So again, the sound sounds like this. All right, so what we're going to do first is let's go to our fifth LFO, take the X-fade curve all the way up to our sinusoidal shape, and we're going to drop this in to our first filter. All right, now to get this to turn on though, I'm going to create a macro here, and I already kind of pre-created this, but we'll do it again. We'll call it LFO 1, and we're going to take this and modulate the amp of that LFO that we just modulated into the filter. So now when we want to turn that on, and I still have my cutoff control set up this way and I'm achieving that by just taking this cutoff, popping it into one of the open modulation sources, clicking sidechain or SC, and then we're choosing the arrow upwards, so it's keying into the third envelope there. Now what we're going to do, now we're going to use the sixth LFO, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure that our X-fade curve is the same. We're on the same shape, so sine and sine. We're going to give it a quicker rate though, because I want to use this control ultimately to be able to automate, control, and change the speed of my LFO. So we have a quarter note 1/4 ratio, and that is modulating into filter 1. And we have a macro here called LFO 1, which is controlling the amp of that LFO. Now, in our 6th LFO, we are going to do the same thing here. We are going to pop in a macro control. We're going to call that LFO rate. We're going to turn that on. We're going to modulate into the cutoff here of our second filter. Now, this won't have any effect on the sound because our mix is set to mix 1, filter 1. Now, I've already turned up the filter volume on filter 2. Don't forget to do that. But this is very important. You need to take this same LFO rate knob that is controlling the amp of the LFO that's being modulated into the cutoff of our filter 2. And we're going to modulate that down from mix 1 to mix 2. So now this one knob here, this LFO rate, is actually doing a bunch of modulation. It's actually turning on the 6th LFO. And at the same time it's turning that on, it's actually going to be turning off filter 1 and turning on filter 2. So now let's listen to this. There's no LFO. Here's a quarter note LFO, which is our 5th LFO here in filter 1. So no LFO, LFO 5, quarter note, and now there's our 8th note. So we're changing through the rate. So then you can do something like this. And again, you can automate all that in, and you have some really cool ways to actually change your sound, and it's all going to be tempo synced as long as you go from hard left to hard right with your macro knob. If you slide in between it, it'll still be tempo synced, but you won't get a actual kind of like a crossfade between the quarter note and the 8th note LFO, but you will get some really cool effects. You get kind of both of them at halfway, which is really cool. All right, guys, there's how you can change the LFO rate inside of Massive. And yes, I know I could have stuck both. I could have stuck 2 LFOs on the same filter, but this gives you more control of your sound because it opens up a slot in each of your filters. So you have both a cutoff control and you can actually get some filter envelope action going on like we do here with the 3rd envelope. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I am Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time.